Welcome to a very spooky two-part episode of Between the Shelves. I'm your ghost, Alex, and my guest ghost this episode is Peter.
Hello.
Hello, Peter. So we have a lot of things to cover in these two episodes, so I'm going to quickly set the table. So Peter and I have made a list of 25 categories of horror films, and each chosen a film that we think is a must-see for each of those categories. So this is in conjunction with something that Peter put together, Remind me the title, Peter?
It's a Horror-ween challenge.
The Horror-ween challenge. And do you want to explain that to our listeners?
Sure. So starting October 1st, you can come to Adult Services and pick up a challenge sheet. And basically, for every movie you watch that fits into one of the categories that we'll be talking about in these two episodes, you get a raffle ticket. If you have one movie that fits more than one category, then you can get more raffle tickets for that. So, and then at the end of the month of October, there will be a drawing for a prize.
Awesome. Any hints of what that prize is going to be?
Well, I guess I can say what it is. It's going to be movie tickets. So.
Nice. How fitting. So, let's get started because we have a lot to cover right now.
Yes.
So, our first category... Oh, I should say, Peter, you're on this episode because you're the Sayville Library's resident horror expert. I think between the two of us, we've probably seen more horror movies than anybody else in the library.
Yes, and every October I try to watch as many horror movies as I can, so this is going to go right along with my normal habits.
Okay, first category is horror movie that takes place on Long Island. Do you want to go first?
Want me to start? Yeah. I should say it takes place or was filmed on Long Island. The one that I chose is probably the most obvious one, which is the Amityville Horror. I thought I hadn't seen it, but I watched it last weekend, and I'm pretty sure I've seen it when I was a kid. I started watching horror movies pretty regular when I was like 12, so I'm sure I saw it back then. But it's a classic horror movie. It does owe a lot to The Exorcist. I think they were probably trying to capitalize a little bit on that with their daughter is kind of creepy. She's got friends with a ghost or whatever. But
do you know what year it came out?
It's 79, I believe.
Oh, so it's like right after The Exorcist.
Yeah, I didn't check to see which, but yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what year Exorcist came out, but late 70s, I know. But it has some really good, creepy images, and I actually thought it was quite good, although I kept thinking this is trying to be The Exorcist a little bit.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about The Exorcist in a future category. I don't remember if I've seen Amityville Horror, to be honest. I think I might have seen the remake of it, which probably is not as good as the original. Yeah, they hardly ever are. Cool. Any notes or anything you want to share about Amityville Horror?
It does star James Brolin, husband of Barbra Streisand, and Margot Kidder, who is one of my favorite. She's been in a few 80s horror movies, more famous as Lois Lane. But
nice. Do you want to rank these horror movies on a scale of 1 to 666?
For how scary or how good?
How scary? How scary?
It kind of depends on. I would say this was a good, on a scale. 666 as being 666, or as 6. 1 to 6.
How about 1 to 6 and then 666 we reserve for the super scary?
Okay, I would say it was maybe a 4.
A 4? Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So my movie, that I chose is called Final Destination. It came out in 2000. It's about a group of teenagers who cheat death after one of their classmates has a premonition that their class trip the plane they're on, taking their class trip, is going to crash. So they don't go on the plane and they survive. And then it's about, your destiny. You were supposed to die, so it's about death sort of coming for after these kids. I watched this right when it came out. I was very young. It left an impression on me. It's not the scariest horror movie, but it's very fun. It's a fun to watch with friends and stuff, to see how creative the writers and the directors come up with creative ways to kill these kids, because there isn't a stalker coming out to kill them. There's not an embodied monster or something. It's just they die in very like accidents and things like that, like very creative accidents.
Yeah, I was not young when I saw this because I'm old, but it's still the reason why if I'm on the highway, I can never be behind a truck that has anything open in it. Like there's a ladder, or in the movie I think it's a
log. Yeah,
but I can never be behind something that has you can visually see there's something in the back of the truck.
Even that scene must have been in the trailer for this movie, because even my wife won't let me drive behind like a log like truck or something, and I know she hasn't seen it. So so I give this movie maybe a 2 out of 1 to 666 on the scary scale, which is copyrighted Savo Library.
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's scary in that it's more like you're covering your eyes when you see what's happening on screen, because you're like, oh no, but not like you have a hard time falling asleep.
It's very suspenseful, because one of them is going to die. It's just like, how and when is it going to happen? All right, next category, we have vampire movie. So I just want to say, before you talk about your vampire movie, I really struggled with this category. I've seen a lot of vampire movies, and I am not a vampire fan. There's maybe 1 or 2 vampire movies I even like, let alone can recommend. So this was a tough category for me. But I will say, I'll say what my movie is. So I actually stole this movie from my foreign horror movie, which is another category for next episode. My movie is called Let the Right One In. It's a Swedish film, and it's about a shy 12-year-old boy who lives in an apartment complex in Sweden, and he befriends a very strange young girl that moves in next door with a very strange father figure. It's an amazing film. It is my favorite vampire movie I've ever seen, and largely because it's like a nice twist on the vampire tropes and vampire story. It's really dark. It's twisted. It goes into some unexpected areas. I like how it explores the whole vampire mythology in a new way. It's just a really fun movie. They made an American remake called Let Me In, I believe.
Yeah, Let Me In.
Which is still good, but the original is phenomenal. So I highly recommend.
I probably would have used that one too, except for I saw that you already used it. I love that one.
I'm glad you didn't choose it, because I was really struggling to come up with another vampire movie. So out of 1 to 666, I would say this is maybe a 2 or a 3. Not very scary, but definitely worth watching.
I would say it's creepier more than scary.
Yeah. All right, what's your vampire movie?
My vampire movie is also an international movie. It's called A Girl Walked Home Alone at Night. It's Iranian, and it's about a teen girl, an Iranian girl, who is a vampire, and she basically uses her vampirism to punish bad men. So she'll only, attack men who are abusers or whatever. It's been a little while I've seen it, but it's got some really good... I mean, it's just it being set in Iran makes it quite different from most vampire movies. To see a vampire like walking around in a full burqa kind of thing, or a hijab, or I'm not sure what the correct term is, but it's quite striking, and it came out not too long ago, within the last in the 2000s at least, which for me is unusual because I really like an older horror movie. But yeah, it's really good. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I would say on the scariness scale, it's probably on the lower end, because it does have some terrifying scenes, but the thing that's kind of interesting about it is they kind of flop. Usually a teenage girl walking alone at night is the victim,
right,
or the one that's scared, and she's not. she's kind of reversing that, but it's kind of more horror, using the horror genre as to make a statement. So I would say maybe a 3.
Yeah. It's funny, we both chose vampire movies that are kind of twists on the vampire movies. So this next category is a category I could talk about. I could do a whole episode on zombie movies. I love zombie movies. I've seen dozens and dozens of zombie movies. So it was very hard for me to narrow down to one, so I couldn't. I'm choosing 2. I hope you chose neither one of these, but they're both George Romero movies, who is the godfather of zombie movies, and it's not the 2 you're thinking of. everyone's heard of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, but the two I want to talk about are Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead. So Day of the Dead is the third movie. It comes after Dawn of the Dead. The reason I like Day of the Dead is the things zombie movies I like the most are the ones where it's the humans are the threat, and it's like how humans deal with living in like a kind of like an apocalyptic scenario, and the kind of like sociology of how people react to like threats and things like that. And that's what this movie is. It's basically people in a bunker trying to survive from the zombie apocalypse that's going on outside, and trying to kind of deal with one another. And the zombies are kind of like the background threat. They're not the primary threat. Spoiler alert, there's plenty of zombie killings in the movie too, so it's got that too. But I don't know, it's a really, really great movie. And then on the other end of the spectrum is Return of the Living Dead, which was originally written by Romero, I believe, and then he abandoned it, and it was rewritten by another team, and they kind of turned it into like a parody of the zombie movie. So it's sort of funny, but it's really campy. It's really like goofy, but it still has horror elements in it, and I really, really recommend this one. It's a great like cult movie. It's so much fun to watch. And fun fact, it's the first zombie movie where a zombie was trying to eat brains.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was not a zombie thing until this movie.
I'm not sure. I probably have seen that one, but all the zombie movies kind of blend together.
I think you might like it in particular, Peter, because it's like early 80s, I want to say it came out, and it looks like an 80s movie. It's a low budget movie. It's like just the perfect campy, like goofy horror movie. Yeah. I think you might like it. So those are my recommendations.
I'm the kind of the opposite. Zombie is not a particular favorite of mine, although I do like zombie movies, and I looked at your list because I would have probably said, was it Day of the Dead your first one?
Yeah.
I really like that one, but instead I actually did another one from that series, which is Dawn of the Dead. It's one of the earlier ones that I saw, and it's the one where the people are in the mall kind of, trying to hide from the zombies, and it just, to me, is kind of like the classic zombie movie, and like I think a lot of them, he has something to say about, class and race, and this one, there's something about capitalism, certainly, since it's in the mall, and it's been a few years since I've seen it, but to me, in my mind, it's kind of probably because of when I saw it, the classic zombie movie.
Yeah, it's still fantastic. It's a must-see for zombie movie fans. And it has that crazy soundtrack, too. Yeah. Do you remember the name of the band? It's like the Wombats or the Ghouls or something like that. They have like a...
it wasn't Goblin, was it?
I think it was.
Oh, because they did a bunch of the, like the Argento movies from the 70s, so it would make sense. They do a lot of horror movie soundtracks.
Okay, our next category is folk horror movie. Now, I don't know what you chose, but I feel like I chose the obvious answer to this one, which is The Wicker Man. Came out in 1973. It has, not Christopher Plummer. Who am I thinking of? Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
He plays like the head of this pagan sort of society that resides on an isolated island off the coast of England, I want to say, or Scotland or something.
Yeah.
And it follows a detective who's investigating the case of a missing child, which leads him to this island that's inhabited by this like pagan cult, basically. And I don't want to spoil too much, but man, the ending is fantastic. It's worth watching just for the ending.
Yeah, it's classic. I think it's kind of the movie that made folk horror a thing, because there were other ones. I watched a couple last year that were older than that I didn't particularly care for, but I think they're the first really great folk horror movie was Wicker Man.
Yeah, and I would say maybe on a creepiness scale, it's way more creepy than like horror, I would say, until maybe the end-ish. I would give maybe like a 3 on the spooky scale. I don't know.
I would say more unsettling than horrifying, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't do scary ratings for our zombie movies either. I don't know. We'll say a 3. Not particularly scary.
I never found the zombie movies, although the first Night of the Living Dead is pretty scary. There's something about how raw it is.
Yeah. What is your folk horror movie?
This is a particular favorite category of mine, so I have a couple. One of them that I hadn't really thought about in a long time, and I haven't seen in years, but this was like one of my all-time favorites as a, preteen, teen, 12, 13-year-old. I was always hoping it would come on, USA Network or something, which is Children of the Corn. I've only seen it once as an adult, and it doesn't hold up particularly well, but I think I definitely saw it before I saw The Wicker Man, and it's kind of about this weird kind of cult that, I don't even remember the details. It's been long enough, but it's, they're in Iowa or somewhere in these cornfields, and it's very creepy. And I remember a lot of the scenes. There's some pretty good gore scenes in it, actually, which is unusual for a kind of a folk horror. It's based on a Stephen King. But the other, I have two in this category. The other one I had is a more recent one, which is Midsummer. I don't know how it's...
I don't know either.
I should, because my dad speaks Swedish. I'll have to call him and ask. But that's another, similar to Wicker Man, where these people they're in like rural Sweden, and it's during the Midsummer Festival, and they starring Florence Pugh, and I can't remember who else. She's the main person though, and they're there for a wedding? It's been a little while since I've seen that one too.
I don't remember.
Anyway, it turns into some weird kind of death cult thing, but it's got all these weird kind of pagan ritual images, which I'm really big on. Like creepy images is my big go-to for horror movies. So it's just really well done. Recent horror movie just from a few years ago.
Great sets, great costume designs. Yeah. Really well produced really horror movie.
Really impactful scenes that you'll have a hard time forgetting if you see it. But Children of the Corn, I would say scale probably pretty low, because it's a little bit seems a little hokey now, maybe 2 or 3. Midsummer, I think, is kind of scary. I would say maybe a 4 or 5 on that one.
Okay. Next category is Wes Craven movies, who's a famous horror director. So I realized I hadn't seen many Wes Craven movies, so my choice is A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I had never seen until this past week when I was preparing for this episode. And I gotta say, it really holds up. I love this movie. The special effects are amazing. They kind of look a little bit low budget, but I think they really hold up in like a kind of campy sort of way. I wouldn't say this movie is particularly scary. Maybe like a 2. Maybe when it came out, if you saw it in the theaters, it might have been maybe like a 4. But yeah, it wasn't really spooky for me. All the jump scares I really saw coming from a mile away, so that didn't really get me. But the special effects are really, really impressive, and I really liked that it had like a proactive final girl who was kind of like plotting to fight back at the monster, which is something you don't see too often.
Is that the first one, the one with the blood that comes up out of the bed? Yeah, that's a pretty cool special effect.
Yeah, the special effects bump up this movie like a full star for me. Yeah. Like, they really hold up. Like, I was just scratching my head. I'm like, how did they do that? I'm like, look, but this is a great one. Freddy Krueger, if you're not familiar, he's the main bad guy.
Wasn't it Johnny Depp's first movie?
Yes, it was. Yes. So I'd say this one, watching it now in your home, is probably like a 2 on the 1 to 666 scale. But if you saw it, in the theater in the day, it might have been a little bit higher. Yeah. But yeah, that's my pick.
Luckily, I did 2 for this one, because I actually had Nightmare on Elm Street as my first pick too. It's just a classic 80s horror where it's got some cool special effects, and it does have some, some scares and but it's also kind of fun, that Freddy Krueger was known for his like little quips, his funny quips, which I just like, it's kind of like the ultimate 80s horror movie to me. But the other one I have that's also Wes Craven is The Hills Have Eyes, which is kind of in that category of sort of like hillbilly horror, where people are... it's been a long time since I've seen this one too, but it's the basic one where you see in a lot of horror movies where people are out in the middle of nowhere, and they go for help to some house that's like the only house within miles, and there's some crazy murderous family. Yeah. And that one I think was remade. Was it Rob Zombie remade that one maybe? I think that was remade recently too, but it is quite scary actually.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but as my memory goes, I would say it's closer to I don't know, maybe a 5, just because it's the kind of thing that you could imagine happening in real life, you know.
What would you say on the scary factor for Hills Have Eyes? Pretty high up, right?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, from memory, maybe a 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's spooky.
It's quite, you know, and it's quite violent. You know, it's...
All right, moving right along. Our next category is a John Carpenter movie. So I also realized I hadn't seen many John Carpenter movies, so I've been kind of on a John Carpenter tear this past couple of weeks, like trying to check off as many as I can.
Might be my favorite horror movie director.
Yeah, he makes some great movies. The movie I chose, because the next category I'm going to talk about John Carpenter again, but the one I chose is my favorite John Carpenter movie. It's The Thing, which I think it's his best movie. It's an amazing concept. It's actually a remake of an old sci-fi movie where I think they're a group of like research scientists or something out in the Arctic, and they discover a crashed alien ship, right? And then they discover that the alien might not be dead and is starting to infect some of the research scientists and kind of turn them against one another. So I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a great concept that really messes with the viewers, and you're always guessing like who's infected, who's not. It has some really iconic scenes where the actors are trying to figure out who's the bad guy and who's not, and some great special effects. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw the scene where the guy's head falls off and turns into a spider and crawls away. I was like so revolted by it, but like in a good way. I'm like, this is amazing. I can't believe somebody made this movie.
Yeah, I feel like the practical effects, you know, really do hold up in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I rewatched it recently. I think I watch it pretty much every winter because it's a good winter movie. And they special effects hold up. The story holds up. I would say on a scary factor, maybe a 3 or 4. Yeah. But absolutely fantastic movie.
Yeah, there's something about a setting too, set up like in the, you know, nowhere near civilization, sort of like the Hills Have Eyes, where it's just like, what are you gonna do? Because you're in the Arctic somewhere. There's nowhere to go, and there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It adds to kind of like the unsettling feeling of like it's like it's a place you haven't been before. So it just adds to like the uneasiness throughout the whole thing.
It has that kind of claustrophobia, kind of like a you know, like an Alien too, where you're like stuck and you can't just you're stuck in this little room because you can't survive outside. You know.
Exactly.
Great one. I got John Carpenter, like I said, is one of my all-time favorite horror directors. So I got 2 for this one. One of them I think is maybe a little bit lesser known of his is called Prince of Darkness. The concept sounds kind of confusing, but I was surprised how much I liked it. It's the concept is they find this jar of green goo that turns out to be the devil, and it's seeping out and possessing people. And what happens is it in the future it like basically ruins the earth. It's like a demonic apocalypse. So these people from the future are communicating through their dreams, communicating people with the dreams. At first they don't know, and there's this actually a iconic thing they say when they're in your dreams, which was on a side note sampled by DJ Shadow in one of his songs, Changeling Transmission, where it says, "This is not a dream. This is not a dream." Yeah. But it actually, Alice Cooper is in it, and it's actually quite good. I saw it a few years ago, and it seems kind of crazy, but I really did enjoy that one, and it's kind of one of his less obvious ones. And the other kind of honorable mention I have for him is Halloween 3. Which is the one where the Michael Myers Halloween 3, which they are trying to make it kind of an anthology series, which people freaked out that it didn't have Mike Myers after the first 2 did. But I remember seeing the ads for this when I was a kid, and they really stuck with me. It's this I think I wrote it in, I think it's a Shamrock Mask Company, and they're showing these commercials for this Halloween mask, and it has this like kind of hypnotic theme to it, and all these kids buy these Halloween masks, and there's a chip in them that basically kills them, and their faces go all, and then bugs come out, and then the bugs kill more kids, and it ends up being like a whole pagan ritual sacrifice thing. But I saw this maybe last year or 2 years ago, and it really does hold up. As you know, I kind of prefer it. A slasher is not really my favorite style, so I kind of prefer it to the conventional Halloween Mike Myers movies.
I'm adding both of those to my to-watch list. Prince of Darkness was already on my to-watch list because a podcast I listened to that I think you listen to as well with Gorley and Rust. They talk about horror movies, and they were both raving about it in their episode. So I gotta watch that movie. And they all love Halloween too, so I know that one's one of their favorites. Cool. So on the scary factor, would you say
Prince of Darkness? It's really hard for me. I think Prince of Darkness, I respond to the concept of it. I thought in kind of a sci-fi, in the future they learn to communicate through dreams kind of thing. So I didn't find it particularly, maybe like a medium 3.
Okay.
Halloween 3 is, pretty creepy. It's like something about like involving little kids in it that makes it worse, know, so I'd say maybe a 4 on that one.
Yeah, I respect John Carpenter for just going big. He always goes big. Like when he always has a choice, he always just amps it up. Yeah. Like Escape from New York, Escape from LA. He just goes over the top all the time. All right, our next category is film from a horror series. So this is a nice tie-in because I chose Halloween, the original Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. It's an all-time classic. It has an iconic soundtrack. Maybe I'll play it in the background. It's my second favorite John Carpenter film after The Thing. Michael Myers is I think he's like the perfect villain. He's faceless, he's unknowable, he's unkillable, and he has seemingly no motivation. So he's sort of just, you can kind of project your own fears on him, and he's kind of like the perfect kind of allegory for the 70s malaise where they're just got out of the Vietnam War and we didn't really understand killing and everything. I don't know, all that stuff. It kind of fits in with the Michael Myers sort of.
Also were a lot of serial killers in the 70s too.
Oh,
so
okay. There you go. But he's perfect because he's always stalking you in the places where you're most vulnerable, your home, and when we're in our most vulnerable states. So there's a lot of teenagers having sex, and then Mike Myers comes in and kills them while they're having sex, or something like that.
Common horror movie thing where you're punished for sexuality.
Exactly. So I don't know. He's kind of the when I think of serial killers, that slasher film, this is just the golden standard for me. And it's just so simply shot. It's just I don't know. There's no frills with this movie. It's just so direct and just, I don't know, engaging. Yeah, just really pulls you in. The synth soundtrack is just, it's so good. Classic.
A fun fact I recently learned too: the house they live in Halloween is the same house where or at least the exterior shots were for the TV series Mama's Family.
Spooky. So on this 1 to 666 scale, let's say the original Halloween's probably a 5 at least. It's
really legitimately scary.
Yeah, at least a 5. What about you? What's your movie from a horror series?
I was just going to mention on that because I love John Carpenter. Soundtrack is classic, and a few years ago I saw him. He was performing live with a full band his movie soundtracks, and of course they did the Halloween theme, and on the screen behind them while he performed it, it was the iconic scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is hiding in the closet and there's the slits of light coming through. It was really good. But for my horror from a series is one of my all-time favorites, which is Hellraiser. It is, distinctly adult. It's not something, it deals with sadomasochism and everything. And it's a, what's his name? Horror author. He did a bunch of different horror movies. I'm blanking on the name of the guy, but Google it. But he basically, it's kind of through sadomasochism and torture that you access this other dimension where there are these Cenobites that are these horrible creatures with one of them has his like the front of his lips ripped open, and there's all sorts of gross things. And the main one is Pinhead, who has all the spikes in his face. But it's actually a really good, really really interesting movie. Kind of went off the rails as a series, but
they all do.
Yeah, the second one I think remember being pretty good, but the first one is really good. And actually, as a music nerd, the original soundtrack for the film was made by this group called Coil, which really just one guy. But the movie, they wouldn't go for it, so they got somebody else new. But you can still they released the soundtrack, the original soundtrack by Coil, which is one of the things on my list. I want to get an original version of that. But yeah, it's has something to say about sexuality and that sort of thing. But it's just like a legitimately good horror movie with like the Cenobites are so cool looking.
Yeah.
So.
That's another one on my to watch list. Okay, our next category is demonic possession movie. So I chose the iconic The Exorcist. It came out in, I want to say mid-70s. Yeah, something like that. This movie is, I consider, the scariest movie ever made. I watched it when I was probably 12 or 13-ish, right around there. And it scared me to my core. I have not seen it since. I will not ever see it again. It is burned into my brain. I can't get the image of what's her name, Linda Blair.
Linda Blair, yeah.
I can't get her face, her possessed face, out of my brain. It haunts me to this day.
Reagan is the character.
Yeah. Absolute scariest movie ever made. It's a 666 on my scale. I don't even want to talk about it because it starts to bring up memories of this movie. And just a little side story, when Scary Movie 2 came out, the comedy movie, they had a bit where they did like a take on The Exorcist, and Andy Richter was like the priest, and they used it in the trailer for the movie, which played on TV regularly. It was a famous movie. And I couldn't even watch the commercial for Scary Movie 2. I was so freaked out because it was too close to The Exorcist.
Number one, Alex, grow up. Don't be such a baby.
No, I can't. I refuse.
Number two, I actually had a very similar experience. I saw it the first time when I was probably 12 and was very terrified by it and had nightmares about it and everything. But I have seen it since then, and it kind of lost some of its bite on a viewing as an adult. But I still think it's a great movie. It just, I guess I'm harder to scare.
I don't know. Oh man, it freaked me out. What's your demonic possession movie?
I did The Omen, which is another horror series. The first one, I'm kind of fudging it a little bit because it's not really demonic possession. It's more like the Antichrist being born, kind of like a...
I think it fits.
But, it's the devil controlling somebody, basically. And it just... I started watching horror movies in the 80s, and I always had a thing for the 70s horror movies. There's something about... I think if anybody, a lot of listeners are similar age, if you were a little kid in the early 80s, I always saw the 70s as... You heard so much about the 70s being, like, bad, kind of. The 80s was less prosperous, and the little kid in your school that was still wearing 70s clothes you felt sorry for, so there's something about the 70s that to me was like already kind of sad or scary or wrong about it, just because I was growing up in the opposite. But this movie has, it's about Damien, this kid that's born that's the Antichrist, and he's making horrible things happen, and there's people that, like, his nanny is like devoted to him, and you find out that all these people around him are Satanists, but it really does have some really iconic, terrifying, and shocking even scenes in it. If you're gonna watch it, I don't want to give away like the main one, because I remember the first time I saw it, it just like kind of took my breath away because I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, I think it's a really solid, like, demonic possession / devil kind of movie. That as far as the scaring, I guess it depends on how scared you are by like devil kind of stuff. But I would say it's a solid three.
I would agree, yeah. I watched all 4 in one day when I was homesick from school. One day they were just putting a marathon on like the Sci-Fi Network or something, and they're fun movies. The first one is really good. I don't really remember the latter ones as much, but I remember the first one being like very, very good. Okay, let's move on to David Cronenberg movie. Do you want to go first?
Sure. David Cronenberg it's between him and John Carpenter for my favorite horror person. I just remember the guy who did Hellraiser, Clive Barker. That's who I was trying to think of. He's a big horror writer and horror movie guy. David Cronenberg, he's got so many, but my all-time favorite from him is The Brood. It's from the 70s, and his thing he's known for is called body horror. So there's this weird body stuff. So it kind of the story, there's this woman and strange things are happening to her, and then these like weird like kind of dwarf creatures are coming and attacking her and stories like that. The thing with a David Cronenberg movie, I think, is so much of it is the concept. I'm hesitating because I'm trying to think of how much I should say about it, but basically the Brood is, it turns out these tumors are growing on the side of this woman, and she's making these minions that attack people, but the imagery is amazing, and Cronenberg just really has a way of it's not just a gross out, there's more to it than the gross out. But the Brood for me, as far as being body horror, is the ultimate body horror. But the honorable mention for me from him is Videodrome, which is
what I was, yeah.
Oh, is that
was my pick. That was my pick, yeah.
Oh, I'll shut up then. You can talk.
Oh, you can jump in. I'm sure you have more insights into Videodrome than I can say. But Videodrome was my pick. It's my favorite Cronenberg movie. Again, it's another body horror movie. And for those who don't know about body horror, basically, his thesis, I guess, is kind of your emotions kind of affecting you physically. So in Videodrome, it's about a studio executive who finds this pirate channel, this TV station that is a snuff channel and shows torture and all this snuff stuff. And basically the studio exec, who's played by James Woods, is rebroadcasting this pirate station for viewership, and it's a sensationalist kind of thing. But then he goes to investigate where the source is coming from, finds out it's coming out of Pittsburgh or somewhere, I forget exactly. And it's basically kind of follows his investigation as he gets deeper and deeper into this cultish sort of group that the details are kind of escaping me a little bit, but that's all you need to know to watch this movie. But basically as you're watching this snuff channel, it starts to mess with your body and your mind, and I don't remember.
Just how external things can change your body, and it also, what was kind of significant about it too at the time was it was kind of at the beginning of surveillance of closed caption, security cameras popping up everywhere. So it had something to do with kind of watching people, reality, and also kind of reality TV, entertainment of real things happening, and people being surveilled, kind of element to it too.
And it deals with censorship too, and kind of the desensitization of the public through visions of violence and sex and things like that on TV. And so it's more than just a slasher film or something. It does have something to say about society.
Yeah, Cronenberg always has something to say, even though there's a lot of gross special effects too.
And there are plenty of gross special effects in this movie, and some really cool ones too, the videotape that breathes and stuff. That was really cool. This is a great movie. On the scariness factor, I don't know, maybe a 3, right down the middle. Yeah. More just unsettling, I would guess, which is kind of the same for most of his movies. I haven't seen The Brood. I know that's more of a straight horror, right?
Yeah, I would say it is more, but still the classic body. That's one of his earlier ones, so I maybe hadn't quite found what would become his more philosophical Although it does have some elements of that. It's been a few years since I saw it. But.
All right. So that is David Cronenberg, right? Any more notes on David Cronenberg?
Nope.
Okay.
I just recommend David Cronenberg if you like
and he's
kind
still,
of more substantive horror movie.
And he's still making movies. What was it? Crimes of the Future was his movie that came out about 2 years ago now, I think. It's not a horror movie, but it deals a lot with the same like themes that are kind of show up in a lot of his movies. But it's more like biographical. I recommend it. It's really good. Okay, our next category is sci-fi horror. So if you don't know what I'm about to say, you don't know who I am. My pick is Alien, 1979, Ridley Scott's movie. I think it's one of the best movies ever made, flat out. It's in my top 4. The brief synopsis is it's the crew of a spaceship, Nostromo, are rerouted on their return trip to Earth to investigate a distress signal on a desolate planet. And they discover something that basically infects one of the crew members and starts a similar kind of horror thing to The Thing, but much better made, in my opinion. I can do a whole episode on Alien. This is one of my favorite movies ever. The production of this movie is like a whole great story in itself. Just the fact that it was ever made is amazing. It's just one of the best movies. Like, it's beautifully shot. It drags out actually introducing you to the monster for half of the film, so the suspense just builds and builds and builds. It's just, the pacing is great. It's A-list actors. Every single cast member is perfect. It's just the perfect movie. I don't know. I don't have much more to say about it. It's just perfect.
How scary is it, though, on a 1 to 666?
When I watched it for the first time, I was probably like 10 or 11, and it was a 5 then. Having seen it 100 times since then, it's down to like a 1. Yeah. I don't think it's particularly scary anymore. Maybe I would say maybe a 2. Yeah. But boy, is it not just the best movie.
It is really good. I mean, I don't know if I love it as much as you do, but does anyone? But I love it too. It's definitely one of the best horror movies and one of the best movies. I'm going to agree with that.
All right. What's your sci-fi horror pick?
I picked a Cronenberg, which is Scanners. Yeah. The story of Scanners is somebody realizes they can telepathically make people have seizures, basically. And so this, corporation tries to weaponize it, basically. And, in classic Cronenberg style, it's talking about like corporations and what they're willing to do. And also like, the whole business of making things to kill people or hurt people, basically. Everybody probably knows the classic, head exploding scene, which is an amazing scene. But this is another one that it's like a slow burn where there's a lot of time spent in like you trying to infiltrate the offices of this company. So it's not an action one, but I'm a big sci-fi buff too, and I tend to prefer sci-fi that's not necessarily spaceship sci-fi, but this kind of conceptual sci-fi. Yeah. So I really love that, and I have an honorable mention. As far as scary, it is kind of scary, but kind of more in a thrillery way. Yeah. Like getting away from these people. So I maybe give it a 3. My honorable mention, since I'm a big 80s horror fan, is Reanimator, which is, it's based on a H.P. Lovecraft, but, it is what you think it is, reanimating corpses, but it's just got, the classic 80s special effects. So if you go in for that kind of classic 80s, it's a solid entry for the sci-fi horror as well.
Yeah, I second that. I forgot about that movie. That's a great movie. I got to rewatch that. Our next category is classic horror movie. So this, I think we defined as filmed in the 60s or earlier, right?
Yeah.
So I really struggled with this because I thought it was filmed before the 60s, and I didn't want to talk about like Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein or something. So I was really struggling, and but then I reread it and I'm like, oh, it's filmed in the 60s or earlier. that opens me up to Hitchcock or, whatever. So I chose Psycho, 1960. I'm sorry if this was your choice because this literally occurred to me like yesterday that I could do this. So Hitchcock really comes to hits his stride with Psycho. It's an iconic movie. It's boundary pushing in a lot of ways. It sets the high bar for horror that really isn't going to be equaled for at least a decade, in my opinion. It follows a woman named Marion Crane. She's on the lam. She stole some money from her boss, and she kind of hides away at this motel off the side of a highway called the Bates Motel. And she is basically introduced to the proprietor of the motel, this man named Norman, who's a bit of an oddball and seems to be like beholden to his like domineering mother who lives in their house that kind of ominously overlooks the motel. I don't want to get into any more than that. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil anything, but it absolutely stands up. It's like a 5-star movie. It's still scary today. It's Hitchcock. It's beautifully shot. Great pacing. Doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the right amount of time. I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said about horror movies. About Psycho, rather. When I was looking at reviews of this movie, someone mentioned that this did for horror what 2001 did for sci-fi, and I kind of agree with that. It kind of just like totally rewrote how horror movies are, and nothing it changed horror movies forever. So Psycho is my pick, 1960.
Great one. Classic. How scary is it though?
I'm going to say like a 3 or 4, maybe.
I think it really holds up.
I think it really does hold
scary.
up.
There's nothing scarier than someone stabbing you in the shower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like that, vulnerability of that, has been repeated in many, many movies. So.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed in myself because I'm a big Hitchcock fan, but I realize I don't think I have any Hitchcock on here, and he did a few strong horror movies. My pick actually is a very old one that I saw many years ago, and I was last October, I was watching kind of a horror history kind of show on TV, and they mentioned it, and it was the original Nosferatu. It's from like the 20s, I think. It's silent, but 22. Basically, I learned this from that documentary thing. They just made the Dracula movie in England, I think, that was based on the Bram Stoker novel, and this was long enough ago that there were still like copyright issues with Bram Stoker. So in Germany, they did not have the rights to Dracula, so they kind of remade it in their own way. They changed it to Nosferatu. But for me, it's just like has some of the creepiest image ever.
Yeah.
And the Dracula is very different looking from the debonair Dracula, where you see this little bald man with his vampire teeth, or the front 2 teeth. And I learned from that documentary too that it was a little problematic that some of those images were kind of anti-Semitic, which I didn't know until I saw that. But it still does have some really, as far as classic movie goes, I'm not really a huge like Hammer horror kind of old style horror guy, although watching that documentary made me want to revisit some of them. But this, just for its like iconic creepy images, even if you just kind of watch it, have it on at a Halloween party or something, it's really, really creepy to look at.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So I actually have something to say about that. So first, have you seen Shadow of the Vampire? Is that the documentary you're talking about?
I might have seen it, or I think it was just one of those countdowns of horror movies where they just kind of mentioned it.
So Shadow of the Vampire is a movie about the making of Nosferatu. And it sort of goes into like the weird production kind of stories and everything about it. And I guess the actor who played the vampire was like a method actor sort of, and kind of was like an absolute monster on set, and really creepy. So it's kind of about it's a horror movie about the making of that horror movie. I think that's worth checking out. And there are 2 remakes currently in production of Nosferatu. Did you know that?
I didn't.
One of them is a star-studded cast. It has, I'll look it up, but I'm sorry. It has, I want to say Sofia Coppola
Oh, really?
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm looking it up right now. Okay, so it's directed by Roger Eggers, who is a modern horror director. Bill Skarsgård is in it. Nicholas Hoult, Willem Dafoe. It's a star-studded cast. So this is currently in production, a remake of Nosferatu. But the other remake of Nosferatu has been in production for a long time, and I've been following this one for a while. It's a remix. They're calling it a remix of the 1922 Nosferatu, where they utilize green screen technology to insert new actors into the roles using the sets from the original movie.
Oh, wow.
And the actor who's playing the Count is Doug Jones. He's plays a lot of monsters in like the Guillermo del Toro movies and things like that. So this one I've been keeping an eye on, and it's been in production for a long time.
It's really interesting because I didn't mention what I was talking about, but it's that classic German expressionist film with the crazy black and white sets and the like really harsh shadows and that sort of thing. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Really interesting.
Okay, our next category is 80s horror movie. Now, I chose The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite directors, and this is I think this might have been the first Stanley Kubrick movie I saw. Very famous movie. It's about a struggling writer who takes a job as a caretaker at an old hotel in the remote woods of Colorado while the hotel is closed for the winter. He brings his family along with him, so it's just the three of him, his wife, and his young son staying at this huge hotel for the entire winter. And, of course, it's a horror movie, so what happens when you go to a house that's in the middle of the woods? Some spooky things start happening. So I don't want to get into the spoilers of everything, but it's just one of the most iconic movies ever. Beautifully, beautifully shot. I think it's still creepy and holds up to this day. Jack Nicholson, phenomenal performance. And I want to just mention, there's a great documentary about this movie called Room 237. And it's available on Canopy right now. So if you're a Save-O Library patron, you can watch it right now, right from home.
I have seen that.
Yeah, it's really cool because it goes into like not only the production of the movie, but it goes into all like the fan theories about like
kind of conspiracy theories about it. Yeah.
So it adds like a whole nother layer of creepiness to this horror movie because, there's all these conspiracy theories about Stanley Kubrick, like filming the moon landing, like faking the moon landing and all this stuff. Like people think he's like a higher genius than he probably actually ever was. So there's a lot of interesting conspiracy theories and some of them are pretty creepy. So
I need to mention also on The Shining, the amazing performance from Shelley Duvall, who I love. And there was something else I was going to say about The Shining. I forgot what it was, but it's for somebody like I talk about how I really like a good creepy image. Some of the best ever made are from The Shining, the creepy twins and the elevator blood and all that stuff.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, some of the most iconic creepy shots you've ever seen.
Totally. So that was my pick. On The Shining, on the scariness scale, I give this I think it holds up. I'm going to say 4.5, 5. Yeah. I'm going to say 5.
That's a pretty scary one. My 80s horror movie is something that I think is maybe a little more characteristic of 80s horror. And I actually didn't see it in the 80s. I saw it a few years ago. It's called The Gate. And it's a story of this little kid. He's probably, 7 or 8 or something. He finds a hole in the ground in a yard, and it turns out to be a portal to hell, predictably. But it's you can guess what kind of things ensue, but it reminds me a lot of Poltergeist. But I was impressed with how good it was because it wasn't. There is a sequel, The Gate 2, which I do not recommend. It is not good, but the first one is a really solid, like kind of Poltergeist style horror movie.
Never heard of this one.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it either. I think a friend told me about it. I have a Facebook group that we have in October. We're all watching horror movies. Somebody on that recommended it to me, and I was like, I don't know how I haven't seen this because I watch a lot of 80s horror movies, but it was really quite strong, kind of, possessed house, something's horrible's coming from the backyard kind of thing.
Nice. The Gate. And scary factor?
I would say it's probably a medium 3-ish.
Okay.
It's like the main it's a kid, so I don't know what the rating is. I think it's at least PG-13 because I think I looked up for the kids category, so it's not necessarily for little kids, but I think it's a PG-13, kind of like Poltergeist.
Yeah. Okay. All right, this brings us to our last category of this episode, which I think, Peter, this might be your favorite category, 70s horror movie. So this is your wheelhouse. I'll go first. I watched The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is probably one of the most iconic 70s horror films. It's sort of kind of pioneered the slasher, kind of hillbilly horror sort of genres. It kind of falls into like the 70s fallout from like Nam and Nixon and all that stuff, and it's kind of like about the decay of the Western family. Like that's sort of like the themes of the movie. But the plot is pretty straightforward. A bunch of teenagers are doing a cross-country road trip, I think, and they stop in, I think it's set in Texas, right?
Yeah.
They run out of gas or something happens in Texas. Their car breaks down and they ask for help, and they ended up getting separated and stumbling into this family of cannibalistic serial killers. Not the best place to break down. The reason I chose this movie is because it's the inspiration. Ridley Scott noted this as his inspiration for doing Alien, my favorite movie. So I feel like I had to watch this movie, and I don't think it particularly holds up very well today.
I disagree. I think it holds up quite well. I watched it a few years ago. Right. I was like, I thought it was quite good.
Well, I mean, the CGI doesn't really hold up very well. Not CGI, the special effects. Yeah. Like the mask and stuff that the father wears. It's like
Leatherface mask.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's still creepy.
Yeah, I think as a film it holds up pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, the special effects, I think, could have used a little bit more budget and patience, but...
Well, it was an independent movie, too, so when it came out, it was, when it came out in the 70s, it was kind of like, a phenomenon that was in. And the recent one, I don't know if you saw, it kind of became a thing they showed in like Rocky Horror Picture Show, like as a cult film.
Oh, cool.
But then they restored the print, and it had a reputation for like looking terrible. But they restored the print, and it was actually like, so much better as far as production value, because some of the early videos and DVDs were taken from like really bad print. Anyway, I really like that one, and that final scene of him dancing with the chainsaw is like really creepy.
Yeah, great killer. Super creepy, like, but I don't know. Not my favorite. I would say on the scary factor, maybe like a 4. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. I've seen so many horror movies that they hardly ever scare me at all, but that's not kind of what I'm looking for, but yeah.
All right, what's your 70s pick?
I couldn't limit it to one, so I have 2, but probably the ultimate 70s horror for what I like about it, for me, is Suspiria, which is it's an Italian horror film, and that was a big thing. There was a few different directors who are doing Italian horror. This is Dario Argento, who did a bunch of them, and this one it's a story of an American girl that moves to I think it's Italy, but now I'm thinking about it, it might be like Austria or something. It is an Italian production, but to go to this like fancy ballet school, and she goes there and weird stuff starts happening, and it turns out that the women there are witches, and that's the thing about Argento. The plot is kind of secondary to like these amazingly shot. It was actually shot on Technicolor film. They found some left over, so it's got that like really saturated bright color thing, and just some of they're almost like beautiful. It's like a weird thing to say about like a scene of somebody like dying, but these just like iconic, a lot of them are death scenes, but also even the shots of the school where it's just these weird hallways with a weird red light. It's just these amazing creepy images. It's like a series of creepy vignettes with an amazing soundtrack by Goblin, who did most of Argento's. We're like an Italian prog band that, their albums are really collectible now if you can find an original one, but just like exactly what I'm looking for when that's my favorite thing with a movie, just creepy images and creepy music. So as far as scary goes, I wouldn't say it's that scary. Maybe a 3. But the images are like just incredible to look at, and that was remade recently, I know too. And
the remake's really good.
I haven't seen that yet. It's on my list for this year. But my other one that I want to mention, which is one that like kind of started me down this road of horror. One of the first horror movies I saw was Carrie, which is the remake of the Stephen King. Everybody probably knows the concept of the girl who finds she has these telekinetic powers, and she's got this horrible mom that's mean to her, and everybody's mean to her at school, and it's of course everybody knows the iconic pig blood, the blood scene, but I think as a movie, the ending that they made for the movie is really bad, but up until that point, it's just got classic. I do like a Stephen King kind of supernatural horror thing with these powers, and it just really made an impression on me as a kid.
Yeah, I think that one holds up pretty well. Yeah. And I think next year we need to do a Stephen King category.
Yeah, definitely.
And a witch category.
I have a list I'm making.
All right, so those are our categories for this episode. So stay tuned. In part 2 of this, we have 13 more categories to go through, I believe, or 12 more categories. So definitely check that out if you're a horror film buff or a movie film buff. Now, before we close out this episode, I just want to say this episode is coming out right before our Fan Fest. It's coming up on November 4th. So please, everybody, come to our Fan Fest. It's Saturday, November 4th. Dress up in your Halloween costume. Find your favorite horror movie character. Dress up. Join the costume contest. We're going to have food trucks, vendors, gaming bus, all sorts of fun stuff. So make sure you come out for that.
I would love to see some Cenobites at the Fan Fest.
Please. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned to part 2.
Bye.